Look at some of the landscape in Fiji. Today's video, we're going to talk about my Fijian friend who promised me to show me the real flavors of Fiji and authentic Fijian foods. As we drove further away from the city, of course, the landscape changes as you see in the background, and we started talking more about authentic Fijian foods. And she made it clear this is not going to be the touristy stuff that I was probably used to around where I was staying, but the authentic home style foods that the local people love to eat here. And to her, this place is special. It's not just a restaurant, it's where locals come to get a taste of home cooked Fijian foods. So with that, this is going to be a spot that most visitors never get a chance to see because it will be considered a hidden gem. The one question I had is, what exactly is Fijian foods? Well, we know that Fiji is an island, so most of the foods are influenced by the ocean, which consists of different types of seafoods, tropical fruits, root vegetables, and much more. As the car pulls up, you can tell this is a nice sized restaurant and is surrounded, as you can see, by tropical plants. If I had to describe the atmosphere of this place, this restaurant, it would be considered laid back and inviting. But if you have traveled to other island countries, you probably noticed that that's how it is. The only problem is this video doesn't capture the different smells of all the foods you see laid out across this table. Just the different aromas of different types of cooked meats. They had different types of course, tropical fruits, different Fijian desserts. All these aromas all in one room. You just can't capture that. You have to be here for yourself. This restaurant is a buffet style type place. So like I mentioned, everything is labeled and you have different choices that you can try. You can sample some things just to make sure if you like it or not before you indulge in getting a larger portion of that specific dish. Before we get into my reaction of my first taste, I'm just going to let you know how I was thinking at the time. How I was thinking was to get as much as I can and just pile on my plate and just hope for the best that I'll like everything that I chose. This was my first time trying authentic Fijian food, so I didn't know what to expect. So that was my method, just pile on everything that I think I might like. But it was some dishes that was labeled that I didn't really know what type of meat it was, so I referred back to her to ask her what type of meat this is. Is it pork? Is it beef? What I can tell you, just from not visiting here, but again, all island countries, to me it seems like the majority of the foods that serve there, their local dishes, or majority, they're healthy. So if you're an American citizen, the labels here, they're not going to be how it is labeled in the US, meaning that you might see some dishes that says organic beef or organic chicken, organic dish. Here, everything is organic, so it's no purpose or no use of using the word organic. And that's most countries. That's just I would call a US gimmick that they use back there, and they upcharge for anything that's listed as organic. And the only country that I have seen that started doing that, I think, was just Brazil. I remember going to a grocery store, and inside the grocery store they had some organic coconut water. That was kind of strange, and this was like maybe 4 years ago, so I'm pretty sure it's more products there that's listed as organic. But back to the local dishes, yes, most of the dishes here, you're gonna have a lot of seafood based dishes, a lot of root vegetables, a lot of different tropical fruits. So as we walk around and reviewing the different types of dishes, my friend explains the significance of each dish. Also, she shared to me some stories of how they're prepared and what they mean to the Fijian culture. And if you visit here, but if you visit any country, it's more than just the food. It's about understanding the culture. And once you get into the food, what goes hand to hand is food and culture. So even if you don't want to, you're going to learn about the culture of that country you're visiting. And all of that is because of the foods. She was just letting me know that this is how they eat at home, or this is how she eats at home. Every dish has a story, a connection to the land, the sea, and their ancestors. And instead of eating inside, we decided to eat outside and just enjoy the atmosphere of the surrounding area, which consists of I think this is a lake right by the restaurant. With authentic Fijian dishes, you'll notice that there is flavor. In some countries you may travel to, when it comes to the local dishes, it's not seasoned right or doesn't have any type of flavor, where it's the opposite here. Here you will discover and witness, once you take your first bite of a Fijian dish, there is flavor. At this restaurant, I tried just about any and everything except for I don't eat pork. On some rare occasions, I try beef, but on this trip, I did not try any type of beef. But I can say that most of the foods that I tried, I could tell that Fiji, they rely on their local source ingredients, and that includes everything that I tried, their fruits, vegetables, fish. And because of this, like I said, it makes the food more healthy because of the lack of processed foods. And speaking of processed foods, when you think of processed foods, the number one country that comes in mind, well, to me, is the US. I'm trying to think of another country that has just as much processed foods as the US, but I can't think of any other country. But with that, also, the US has healthier options. The only problem I see with Americans is you have a lot of Americans that choose the most unhealthiest foods to eat. So there's options, but from what I see, most Americans don't choose that option. Even if they're from another country, they're immigrant or they migrated to the US, for some reason, I guess because it's cheaper, they choose the unhealthiest options. So when I hear people say the US has some of the most processed foods, the most unhealthiest foods, that is true in a way, but then again is why are you choosing those types of foods? Health is wealth, so you will have to spend a little bit more money if you're American to eat healthier. And on that note, don't wait till you travel to a different country to start eating healthy. If you're from America, you had the option to start there, but you chose not to, so don't wait years later or when you finally do travel to start eating healthy. Besides Fijians' genetics, I think something else that plays a part in the way they look, because I did mention that most Fijians that you run across, they're not little skinny people. Not saying that they're fat, but muscular. And as in height, they're not really short people. Majority people that I've met, they're pretty tall. And besides genetics, we know that foods play an important part in having a lot of local source foods. Also, being an island country, you have the abundance of different types of seafoods. Therefore, you have different type of fish to choose from. And we know that fish is a healthy source of protein because it's very lean. The faster the animal, the more leaner the animal is. And seafood just in general has omega-3s. And omega-3s is important for the heart and different other functions. Also, these people eat a lot of root vegetables like taro, cassava, sweet potatoes. So all those are plant-based staples in the Fijian diet. And with that, you get what? Fiber. Fiber is very important. And also with the coconut and coconut milk, there's a lot of dishes here that are coconut based. And also with the tropical fruits, when you go to an island country, you have usually a variety of different types of tropical fruits like papaya, mangoes, pineapple. And all these are just high in vitamins, antioxidants, again, fiber. Not to say that Fiji is just some island with all nutritious and healthy foods and there's no fast foods here, because that would be a lie. There are fast food options here. But what I'm saying is the local native Fijian diet does not consist of fast food. So overall, my experience tasting the native Fijian dishes here that I had, from a rate from 1 to 10, it would be a 10. Everything was organic. Everything had some type of flavor. It wasn't bland. And last, everything was very healthy. They should have more restaurants like this in downtown in Suva, because where I'm staying at, I'm not seeing a lot of options. Most of the options that I saw, like I mentioned I think in my previous video, is mostly Indian foods. A lot of different types of Indian restaurants compared to authentic Fijian restaurants. After trying all these different types of foods, we decided to get up and take a walk before we called an Uber back to downtown to where I'm staying. And it's always interesting when you go to another country and you see the diet of the native people that's in that country and their traditional eating habits, because all that reflects and supports their genetic makeup over generations. And you start thinking to yourself and comparing other countries you may have visited in the past of the foods that country most of the people ate. And come to think about it, a lot of countries I visited have a high carb diet. I think of the US, a lot of carbs, but the unhealthy ones. Cookies, potato chips, a lot of different types of cereals. When I think of Brazil, a lot of potatoes, a lot of rice, a lot of different types of breads, also beans. I remember one time I was in Brazil, and the first person I met when she invited me over to her mom's house, I had a dish that consisted of potatoes, beans, of something that's called farofa, which is basically like a cornmeal type of thing, but it has no flavor whatsoever. It's pretty much bland like grits or like oatmeal. It has no taste. And rice, all in one dish with a type of meat, whether that's chicken, beef, or pork. It's just something that I observed. Once you travel to a certain amount of countries, you start comparing, you just start observing just the little things. Also, something I noticed from traveling to other island countries is you have a lot of coconut milk based dishes. Now, I don't know whether or not is it because it's more accessible, or is it more because of the people from that island is more lactose intolerant. And I'm talking more of the use of coconut milk versus cow's milk. And then I start thinking about when I'm in the grocery store back home in the US and I see people from other countries, they're much bigger as in height and as in their body mass of the people of the country they originate from. And I know that's because of the American diet. I think because of all the antibiotics they put in different types of animals, whether it's chicken, a cow, or from other animals, so that they won't get sick. Because again, we have such a high population. We need to crank out as much food as we can to feed the population. Everything has antibiotics in it. Therefore, I think it kind of affects how we grow, our genetics, and just our overall look. But the downside of that is that it affects our overall health. Also, I wouldn't be surprised if the US, we have a lot of people that's antibiotic resistance. And that's because US animals are injected with different types of antibiotics so they won't get sick, because most of them are crowded around each other to keep them from getting ill or contaminating another animal. They just shoot them full of antibiotics, and in return, we eat those animals. I think because of the American population and the increase of the population, to have everything organic would be kind of impossible. Therefore, you're going to have some foods that are GMO, genetically modified, and also you're going to have a lot of processed foods. But when you travel to other countries, especially if they're smaller, you have less of that. Thanks if you watched and made it to the end of this video.
As we make our way through the night, the state of Wednesday, as we make our way through the night, looking for a beautiful day downtown today. Idea for a beautiful day downtown today. The low 80s with mostly sunny skies. As the heat is